The river was barely 20 feet wide, knee-deep. A man could wade across it in seconds. Julius Caesar stood at its bank and made a decision that would kill hundreds of thousands of people, destroy the Roman Republic, and end with 23 blades in his own body. He had already made it before he arrived. In January of 49 BC, Julius Caesar had been governor of Gaul for 9 years. He had conquered 800 cities. He had fought against 3 million men and enslaved 1 million of them. He had made himself the most powerful man in the Roman world, and the Senate wanted him gone, not honored, not celebrated, gone, prosecuted, stripped of his command, dragged back to Rome as a private citizen, and tried for the irregularities of his governorship. His former ally Pompey had already been given emergency powers. 11 legions were moving into position. If Caesar crossed back to Rome unarmed, he would not survive the politics. Most people remember the Rubicon as the moment Caesar chose ambition over law. But here's what that framing misses. By January of 49 BC, Caesar had no good options left. He had already lost. This crossing was not audacity, it was survival. Gaius Julius Caesar was born in 100 BC into the patrician class, well-connected but not wealthy. He understood from an early age that Roman power required military reputation, and military reputation required a war. For that, you needed a province. In 59 BC, Caesar secured the governorship of Cisalpine Gaul and Illyricum. Then Transalpine Gaul was added. He had his war. He had 9 years to make himself irreplaceable. He made himself irreplaceable. 800 settlements. 60 Gallic tribes brought to heel. Vercingetorix, the greatest Gallic leader, forced to kneel at Caesar's feet. His soldiers were fanatically loyal. His treasury was full of Gallic gold. In Rome, this success terrified the Optimates, the conservative Senate faction. Cato, Caesar's most implacable enemy, had a simple fear. If Caesar brought that army home to Rome, the Republic was over. He was right. Caesar and Pompey had been bound together by marriage. Caesar's daughter Julia was Pompey's wife. That bond had kept their rivalry manageable for years. Then, in 54 BC, Julia died in childbirth. The political alliance died with her. In 53 BC, Marcus Crassus, the third pillar of Roman power, died at the Battle of Carrhae. The political triangle that had kept the peace collapsed into a line. Caesar on one end, Pompey on the other. Pompey began consolidating power. He was appointed sole consul, an unprecedented constitutional violation that the Senate permitted, because they feared Caesar more than they feared Pompey. Caesar watched from Gaul. He knew what was happening. He sent proposal after proposal to Rome. I will disband my army if Pompey disbands his. The Senate rejected every offer. 2 tribunes loyal to Caesar, Mark Antony and Quintus Cassius, had exercised their veto on the Senate's ultimatum. The Senate declared a state of emergency and physically ejected them from the chamber. They fled Rome disguised as slaves. Caesar showed his soldiers what had been done to the tribunes of the people. The reaction in the camp was what Caesar needed it to be. But there was still one moment, one proposed compromise that could have stopped this. Caesar sent a final compromise. Let me keep 2 legions and 2 northern provinces until I can run for consul in absentia. Cicero, who was present, later wrote that most senators were prepared to accept. It was reasonable. It was achievable. It almost passed. Cato spoke for 2 hours. He would not allow it. He knew that if Caesar kept any army at all, the threat remained. The compromise failed. The Senate issued its final ultimatum: disband completely, or be declared an enemy of the state. Caesar had crossed into Cisalpine Gaul 2 weeks earlier, well ahead of the final decree. He had already positioned the 13th Legion at Ravenna, just north of the Rubicon. He had known this moment was coming. He had prepared for it. He called a meeting of his senior officers. He explained the situation plainly, as if they needed explanation. He asked for their loyalty. The answer from every man in the tent was yes. On the night of January 10th, the 13th Legion marched south. Toward the Rubicon. He stopped at the bank. There was no dramatic speech, at least, none of the ancient sources record one as a true oration. What they record is a pause. His officers stood around him. They understood what they were about to do. They had families in Rome, property in Rome, names that could be destroyed. Caesar looking at the water, not at Rome, not at his men. At the water. Suetonius records that Caesar spoke one sentence before he crossed. Whether he said it in Latin or in Greek is disputed. The historians disagree. What they agree on is the meaning. The die is cast. Every man who followed him into that water committed treason against the Roman state. They crossed, all of them. In silence, he stood on the southern bank, the Rubicon behind him, the Republic ahead of him. He had crossed the line that defined Rome, and it would never be uncrossed. The news reached Rome within hours. Caesar had crossed. He was coming south. And he had only one legion. Pompey's initial response shocked even his allies. He did not march to meet Caesar. He fled. He left Rome entirely, moving south toward Brundisium, then across the Adriatic to Greece. Most of the Senate fled with him. The consuls fled. The city that had governed the Mediterranean world for 500 years was abandoned by its own government in a matter of days. Caesar moved south at a measured pace. He gave explicit orders: no looting, no violence, no reprisals. Town after town opened its gates without resistance. Caesar was not marching like a conqueror. He was performing a very deliberate political theater. He released prisoners. He returned property. He publicly stated his goals: restore the Republic from the corruption of the Senate. End the political persecution of legitimate Roman magistrates. He sounded like a reformer, not a tyrant. It was masterful. By March, Pompey had crossed to Greece with 30,000 men. He controlled the eastern Mediterranean and its resources. He expected to rebuild, regroup, and return with an overwhelming force. He was not wrong to expect this. He was wrong about what Caesar would do next. Caesar defeated Pompey at Pharsalus in 48 BC. Pompey fled to Egypt and was killed on the beach by Egyptian courtiers trying to earn Caesar's favor. A man who had commanded the eastern Mediterranean ended his life with a knife on a foreign shore. By 46 BC, Caesar held multiple consulships, the dictatorship, and effective control of the state. In February of 44 BC, he was declared dictator for life. The Republic was functionally over. The same year, Caesar reformed the Roman calendar, the Julian calendar that became the basis of the Gregorian calendar we still use. July is named for Julius Caesar. The months you use every day carry his decision at the Rubicon. The empire Caesar's crossing made possible lasted in the West for 500 years. In the East, as the Byzantine Empire, for 1500. The political structure of all of Europe, its legal traditions, its languages, its city layouts, trace back in measurable ways to what Caesar set in motion at the Rubicon. There's a historical marker at the presumed site of Caesar's crossing. On a summer afternoon, people take photographs in front of it. The river hasn't changed. What's changed is everything around it. What's worth sitting with isn't whether Caesar was right or wrong. It's that he crossed knowing exactly what it would cost. He had calculated the outcome, including, on some level, his own mortality. He crossed anyway. History's most consequential decisions are rarely made in ignorance. They're made by people who know the cost and choose to pay it. Whether that makes Caesar a destroyer of republics or a man who refused to accept a rigged verdict, historians still disagree. The river doesn't care either way. If you watch this far, you read the audience History Republic was built for people who want history told with the depth and precision it deserves, not simplified into a meme or a listicle. History Republic is built entirely on the support of people who believe serious historical storytelling is worth preserving. If that's you, membership details are in the description. If you share this video, you're doing the same work. More is coming.